Have you guys ever watched that wonderful Australian TV show Bluey and felt nostalgic for a place that you've never actually been to? Yeah, me too, man. And I really want to talk about it, about these places that feel strangely familiar. Even though I did not grow up with Bluey because I am old, so I grew up with other things like SpongeBob, which is goated. But I want to talk about the liminal spaces in Bluey, but I also kind of want to pair that with settings in general. And how settings impact a story is what I really want to talk about in this by focusing on the beautiful liminal spaces, what they represent, and why setting themselves are doing so much of the storytelling. So, we're going to start with one of the best episodes in children's television, I think, in the past decade, and that is Sleepy Time. And I know when people think of liminal spaces, they usually imagine like empty hallways, abandoned malls, or lonely parking lots, but by definition, liminal spaces are in betweens. So I feel like they're a little bit subjective. So I want to talk about how Sleepy Time proves that liminal spaces don't always have to be inherently unsettling and that they can be beautiful in a sense. So if you haven't seen this episode in a while, the Bingo is dreaming about space, and like most of the episode takes place in the emptiness of space. And it's beautiful. The animation is absolutely phenomenal. But the setting is telling the story just as much as the dialogue is. So I think space is like the ultimate liminal space because it's endless, it's quiet, and it's honestly lonely. Like there's nobody floating up there with you. And that's exactly where Bingo is in her life. So she's caught between being completely dependent on her mom and learning to become more independent. And she says that by doing like a big girl sleep, but which means waking up in her bed without like having to go sleep with her parents or whatever. So she's no longer this tiny little pup who needs to be held all the time, but she's not quite ready to let go of that love either. And I think that's a very difficult transition in our lives. And I think that's why there's like so many tantrums and shit that go on with children. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't know. But the vast emptiness around her, I think, reflects that transition. Every planet she visits kind of feels like another step from the comfort of her home, while the silence reminds us that growing up can feel exciting and isolating at the same time. And then there's the sun. Praise the sun. Throughout the episode, Chili is represented by the sun because she's like this warm, constant energy that is always there no matter how far Bingo travels, just like the real sun. It is a beautiful piece of visual storytelling. Like, Chili never chases Bingo through space or tries to like pull her back in. She just shines and gives Bingo the confidence to keep exploring Jupiter and whatever. So without the setting, I think that message wouldn't land nearly as well. Like, because it's this huge allegory for growing up, but it also shows what growing up feels like by giving the isolation of space that space is used very often as a symbol for isolation, and it uses that, but it also has the son and the mother where it's not a full transition yet. Like, she wants to transition, but she still has somebody to lean back on. And that endless, peaceful emptiness of space captures that feeling better than words could ever be able to. The next episode we're going to talk about is Turtle Boy, and I think it does the exact opposite of Sleepy Time because it takes place entirely in one location except for like the little beginning part, and that location is an empty playground, which is one of the most common liminal spaces you will see on the internet when you Google liminal space. And there's something strangely nostalgic about seeing a playground before the day begins, because like it's kind of early in the morning when they go to the playground, so it's still like not fully day, but like the swings aren't moving, the slides are empty, everything feels like it's waiting for someone to arrive. And it's like this place that's built for laughter, yet it's juxtaposed to these quiet moments that the deaf dog is having with Turtle Boy, and it almost feels kind of sacred, if you ask me. And I think that's why the setting works so well. The playground it transforms from a place for children to play, and it becomes a place where memories are left behind. And throughout the episode, the turtle toy is passed from one child to another. Neither of them meet ever. They don't know each other's names, yet they're all connected in this same space. And I think a playground very much represents a transitional phase because they're learning emotional maturity, and the backdrop is a playground. playground, and the playground becomes a silent storyteller. Every child who visits something leaves behind a small piece of themselves, no matter what. And I think that's something we rarely think about in life. Like in school, you might have drawn like a little doodle on the desk or whatever, and it's still there, or you just kind of left a memory there with a teacher. So I think that like schools, parks, playgrounds, they're constantly filled with people we've never met, and each of them are bringing their own stories, fears, and happy memories for us to explore. And then they leave and someone else takes their place. But the setting never changes. That's the important part of a liminal space. The setting doesn't change, but the people do. And that's what makes this playground feel so liminal. It's always been one childhood and then the next. So once one family leaves, another family begins. And we've all probably been to a place like that. A park you haven't visited in years is usually a good example of this, or your old school that you used to go to. It stayed the same, but the people in it left, and maybe it changed for the better or for the worst. I don't know. That's for you to decide. A playground that's exactly the same, even though the kids playing it are completely different, is a huge symbol, and Blue reminds us that places don't witness our memories. Sometimes they quietly carry them forward once that our memories are done and we've moved on. Sometimes it carries them for us to the next child. And that symbol is perfectly shown by the stuffed animal of Turtle Boy being passed around and being happy that he's getting to do all these things, little Turtle Boy guy. One of my favorite and more traditional examples of liminal spaces in Bluey is the episode Cubby, and it's the one where they build that like massive fucking blanket fort. I think it's hilarious because it kind of starts as a blanket fort and then it does not end as a blanket fort. So Bluey and Bingo are building this like little house in the blanket and pillow fort, and they continue adding rooms and furniture, and their Cubby slowly stops being like this little blanket fort, and it like feels like its own world. Like the hallways stretch on way longer than they should, and I think that the setting perfectly encapsulates what's it like to be a kid, because you know, you build your little fort and you think it's like the size of a castle, and then these rooms appear out of nowhere, and then Bandit, the dad, has to go to the bathroom, and he literally gets completely lost trying to navigate this thing. It does not obey the rules of reality at all, but it does obey the rules of childhood, and I think that's what makes the setting so brilliant. As adults, we see a pile of blankets and pillows and a bunch of shit that we're gonna have to clean up. As a kid, you see like a cave or a spaceship or an entire universe, and the Cubby represents something most of us eventually lost, and that is the ability to let our imagination completely transform the world around us. When you're a child, you kind of view like your bedroom as something different. It's like your own world, or like a couch can become a mountain, or the floor can become lava, and then 4 blankets and a couple of chairs can feel bigger than your entire house. And Bluey shows that so perfectly with this episode. Like, it's showing us what having a vivid imagination is like. Like, the impossible size, it's becoming magical, and it's there because that's genuinely how childhood felt. And looking back, those forts did seem, you know, enormous, but they really weren't. And the Cubby becomes a liminal space because it exists somewhere between reality and imagination. It's a place that adults can walk into, but only children can truly understand. The next episode I want to talk about is Bedroom, and I think it's one of the more quieter liminal spaces, but it's also one of the more ordinary. It's like literally a bedroom. If you don't remember the plot of it, Bluey wants to move her room into like this spare room or whatever, and it leaves like them separated and having their own bedrooms for the first time. Like, it's not really anything dramatic. Like, nobody's fucking traveling through space or anything like that. The room is like exactly the same room that it's always been. It's not anything crazy, but it really doesn't feel the same anymore when Bluey moves out of the room, and that's what makes it such an effective setting. A bedroom is one of the most personal places we have. It's where we feel safe, it's where we sleep, it's where our childhood memories were made with our siblings, you know, playing in the bedrooms on the carpet or whatever you did. And when Bluey moves out, the room enters this stage of a weird in-between, because it's no longer a room that like sisters grew up sharing. It's just, you know, a room. It's not even Bingo's room yet because it exists between two versions of the home. And I think we've all experienced places like that. You know, you're walking through your childhood bedroom after you've moved out. I still get emotional doing that at my parents' house. Like my mom will be like, "Oh, can you go grab this? It's in your old room," and it's sad. You know, the bed's not there anymore. It's weird. An empty classroom on the last day of school. If I have any more teachers in the audience here, I'm sure you could chime in on this. It's kind of hard, you know, walking out of your classroom. A house where the furniture's packed away, I feel like, is another example. But nothing about the place has fundamentally changed. The atoms are all still the same, but somehow the emotional capacity and everything about it has changed. Like, the room isn't even empty in my point of view. I just don't think it's filled with physical items. It's filled more with emotional items like memories. And I think that's why it has such like a liminal feeling, because it's caught between the past and the future, where you're holding on to one chapter of life while quickly making room for the next. And I think that's the message of this episode. Like, growing up rarely happens all at once. And I know at the end of the episode they move back in their rooms together because they weren't ready for that transition. And you know what? That's okay. You know, like, sometimes growing up is as simple as moving a bed across the hall, and sometimes growing up is buying a house and paying your mortgage. But you know, in that small change, like, an entire chapter of childhood comes to an end, getting your own bedroom. And I think that this episode did a really good job at showing that feelings that a child might have of getting separated from their siblings just in a different bedroom. And I think it's interesting that they decided to stay together at the end of it. I thought that was a really good choice as well, because it showed that it's also okay to not be ready to take those steps and to give yourself some more time to adjust. The next episode I want to talk about is Rain. And I really love this episode because, like, there's no dialogue in it, and it tells a story just through visuals. I think that's really cool. And the episode takes place on like a quiet suburban street after it starts raining. And there's nothing really crazy about that, you know, it's just sidewalks, puddles, and shit like that. But I think that's what makes it so effective. Like, rain can transform an ordinary street into something completely different. It's a place that Bluey has probably walked like a million times, and it suddenly becomes a new adventure just because there's like puddles and shit on the ground. And I think it's also this like reminder from the setting that children reinvent the world that they're around. You know, like, as an adult, some of us like the rain, some of us feel inconvenienced by it, but children use it to kind of reinvent it. I think that's what gives this episode such a liminal feeling. Like, the streets kind of exist somewhere between ordinary and the extraordinary. You know, like, we see a rainy afternoon, Bluey sees an entire world waiting to be explored. And as the episode goes on, I think something changes as well, that Chili, the mom, she stops fighting against the rain and starts seeing the world through Bluey's eyes. And I think that's also a very important message for parents as well, that, you know, you might not be a kid anymore and you might not understand what they're seeing, but you still should try to understand, to see things from their point of view. And what I think is interesting about that is when Chili starts seeing this, the setting never changes. Like, they don't get in the car and go to the park or anything like that. It's just the perspective of the event changes. And I think that's what makes Rain have like such this brilliant visual storytelling, because Rain becomes this like invitation to slow down, let go of having to worry about cleaning up messes from the mud, and appreciate the beauty that's been there all along. And sometimes the most meaningful places are just that. You know, you don't realize how beautiful they are until someone points it out to you, and sometimes that's a 7-year-old blue dog. And they're the ordinary places we finally stop long enough to see differently. Those can be the most beautiful, I think, and I think Rain does a really good job at using its setting to portray that message. Next episode I want to talk about is The Creek, and I know that this one literally has like the opposite liminality portrayal of Rain, but I still want to talk about it because it's also this like kind of hidden away place. Like, it's kind of hidden behind the neighborhood, this little creek or crick. I don't know. I say creek, but I hear people say crick all the time, and I don't know which one's right, so someone just tell me in the comments. But the creek is just untouched by time. Like, you know, the moment Bluey steps off that sidewalk and into the woods, like, she's entering a completely different world. And, like, the color choices and, like, the music and the tone, that all corresponds to this, that it's a completely different world, and she's like overwhelmed by it. She's scared, like, because she's never seen this shit before, and I think that's what makes the creek such an effective liminal space, because like every other liminal space, it's an in-between, and I think this is between civilization and wilderness, because you're not so far off the goddamn grid that, you gotta start scavenging for berries, but you're close enough to home to feel safe, but you're far enough away to where it feels like an adventure. And I think we all had a place like this as a kid where we felt like we were really roughing it when we were like camping in our backyards or something. But like I said, Bluey's nervous at first because everything's unfamiliar, the bugs seem scary, but I mean, granted, it is Australia, so I kind of get where she's coming from. But as she spends more time there, like, I think that her mindset changes. Like, the place itself never becomes less like a wilderness. Like, there's still like lizards and shit moving around, and bandits, like, we gotta check for ticks, but Bluey just simply learns to see it differently. Like, by the end of the episode, like, she thinks the creek is beautiful. She even says it. She's like, the creek is beautiful. I can't do an Australian accent, I'm sorry. And I think that's why this setting works so well. It's beautiful. It represents the moment every child realizes that the world is much bigger than the small corner they've always known. Like, it's bigger than their backyard, and that's a huge thing. And there are places that seem intimidating at first, but if you're willing to explore them, they often become some of the places you remember the most. Like, I was really scared of amusement parks as a kid. Now they're like my favorite thing to do, except I get sick now because I'm old, but it's okay because Dramamine exists. But that's what makes the creek feel nostalgic to me, because most of us probably had a place like that growing up, like a little patch of woods or a creek or an empty field or some wilderness that wasn't too far away from home where you still felt comfortable. But it's somewhere that felt enormous when we were children, even if we'd probably walk through it in like 5 minutes and it's fine. But Bluey reminds us that those places weren't special because they were these like massive state park level of wilderness to explore. They were special because they were the first place that made us feel like the explorers, instead of our parents dragging us through, I don't know, the Smoky Mountains to get a picture in front of a waterfall. This felt much different. It felt more like the children are in charge of this experience. So I think that's why the creek is kind of this liminal area. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you can't tell, I'm on like a liminal space kick. I don't know why. Like, I saw this TikTok and it was like, it had nothing to do with any of this. It was just like literally the pool rooms, and I'm like, oh my god, I love liminal spaces. So I'm like kind of talking about them because I'm nuts. But if you like these videos, let me know what kids TV show or any TV show in that matter you would like me to do a liminal space video on, or if you want me to shut up about liminal spaces, please tell me what you want to see. I've been working on a couple of videos, try to get them out to you as soon as I can, but again, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.